I felt a deep calling in my heart that I was called to be a priest. I just look forward to bringing people closer to God. Be open to the calling. The most important thing is to be open. You can only be really happy if you're doing what God wants you to do. God has a calling for every one of us. My name is Father Paul Fox. I was born into a Catholic farming family in the lower southwest of the state. It was a devout Catholic family. My mother particularly was very religious. And I remember growing up there, when we went into the town to shop, for example, she would make visits to the Blessed Sacrament in the church. And I think as a young child, that had a big influence on me. I could see how religious she was. There was lots of prayer. Particularly more from my mother than from my father's side. But it was a good formation in the family. We taught the importance of religion. I went to a Catholic school and had the religious sisters of St. Joseph teaching me in primary school. And that was a good formation as well. When I finished school, I realised I wasn't cut out to be a farmer because growing up I'd suffered from asthma. So I wasn't really strong enough to go on the farm like my cousins and other members of the family, my brother and so on. On finishing school, I went to work as a clerk and I had a number of clerical positions and eventually came to the city. My younger sister was in the city at that time. She was doing studies and so I shared a flat with her in the city for a while. A turning point, I think, in my life was when I was working as a clerk / auditor in an international hotel. It was a very interesting role because I was meeting a lot of celebrities and people like that, and we'd do all the accounts overnight. It was a night shift at that time. And I remember checking a room. We had to check the rooms when guests left. I picked up a Bible beside the bedside in the room, and I was 25 years of age at that time, and I started reading it because my eyes had come to the story of the rich young man. And the words of Jesus really spoke to my heart because I think I'd been fairly materialistic before then. And Jesus was saying, make sure your treasure's in heaven. So that was the message from reading that story. And I started to think, what really is important in life? And the most important thing is a relationship with God. Although I was going to Sunday Mass, I wasn't overly religious at that point. So after that, I started visiting the cathedral. I was working nearby, and I'd visit St. Mary's Cathedral on the way home from work. And I started lighting a candle in Our Lady's Chapel, started praying much more and reading the scriptures more. I read the whole Bible at that point. And I think that had a big impact on me as well. I came to know the Word of God better. I got involved in the Marian movement of priests. At that time I was also involved in surf lifesaving. I'd done a lot of swimming by then, and I'd eventually grown out of the asthma altogether, because I had asthma growing up as a child. I grew closer and closer to Mary, the Mother of God, over these years, and I'd bought a house in Woodlands, and near there was a family who had a cenacle. It was a very big family, and I started joining in the cenacle, which is a rosary group, and that was a big help to me as well. I started praying the Stations of the Cross regularly after work at the North Perth Monastery, as well as attending the Saturday Novena. I felt a deep calling in my heart that I was called to be a priest. And I went into the house of discernment, and I really enjoyed that experience. And from then on, I was accepted by the Archbishop to become a priest. So I went to the city of Rome to study, and I was there for 4 years, and I completed a baccalaureate in theology at St. Thomas Aquinas University. And I enjoyed every moment of my time in seminary. I experienced a great inner peace. From the moment I got to seminary, I knew this was what I was meant to do. I never had a doubt after that. And I came back, I was ordained as a priest in St. Paul's Basilica, and it was probably fitting because I was a later vocation and St. Paul was a later vocation as well. So I was ordained at St. Paul's Basilica, then came back to Perth, where I was ordained as a priest in 1998. This is my 25th year as a priest, Silver Jubilee this year. I've been very, very happy during this time as a priest, and I developed a great devotion to the Blessed Sacrament as well. It was after hearing a tape by Archbishop Fulton Sheen on the Holy Hour. From then on, after I heard that message from Archbishop Sheen, I started doing a Holy Hour every day. But I now do a Holy Hour in the morning, every morning, and one in the evening. I say all my prayers in front of the Blessed Sacrament. It was about the age of 35 that I went into the pre-seminary. So seminary life was quite demanding, but nevertheless I loved the experience. So we used to knock 3,000 word essays about every 14 days, I think, just about. And then we had oral exams as well. But I love studying philosophy, and I love theology and the scriptures. So it really was a special time. And during the seminary, I used to do Christian meditation. I used to do it in my room initially. And I felt one day the love of God really come over me. I felt as if I was held by God, in the bosom of God, and the overpowering love of God from head to foot. So that was like a confirmation of my vocation. This is where God wanted me to be, in the seminary. So from there on, I eventually started doing regular adoration in the seminary chapel. I do my meditation down there in front of the Blessed Sacrament, and we had adoration in the seminary in the evenings as well. I was involved in that, and the rosary. And we had a prayer group in the seminary where, with other seminarians, there was a group of us, we'd pray 3 rosaries every evening. Final 2 years of seminary, I went out to the local university, St. Thomas Aquinas, and did my baccalaureate there. And that was a great experience too. I really loved the studies, and I love all the studies. I found it so wonderful, and my spiritual life had really taken off in a big way now, so I was totally fixed on serving God for the rest of my life. After coming back from Rome as a deacon, I was ordained at St. Mary's Cathedral. I was one of 5 ordained, and we're all devoted to Mary, the Mother of God, and that was 43 when I was ordained. We were all later vocations, and we'd all studied in the city of Rome at the same time. So it was really a wonderful experience, the ordination, and during the ordination we all did a consecration to the Immaculate Heart of Mary as well before the final blessing. After that, I was appointed to St. Mary's Cathedral, which was probably appropriate for me because I'd been attending the cathedral for many years before being ordained as a priest. After serving at the cathedral for about 18 months, I was appointed by Archbishop Hickey to Gin Chittering Parish. And I've been here ever since. This is now my Silver Jubilee this year. So I would have been a priest for 25 years this year. I find that there's nothing more rewarding than serving God. So I love being a priest, and I have a good spiritual life. I do a holy hour in the morning, say all my prayers in front of the Blessed Sacrament, and I do a holy hour in the evening, every evening as well, finishing off my breviary, Vespers, and other prayers in front of the Blessed Sacrament. And I'll pray 4 rosaries a day. I find this gives me great strength, the rosary, and the many blessings of the rosary, the great promises, the 15 promises, are really a great gift from our Heavenly Mother. I was ordained as a priest at St Mary's Cathedral in Perth on the 9th of October 1998. So it was a day of immense joy. My father had already passed away, but my mother was there at the ordination, and my siblings were there, and uncles and aunties, lots of relatives. So it was just a day of immense joy. The following day I had my first Mass, Our Lady of the Rosary, in Doubleview Parish. That's where I'd been a parishioner before entering seminary. That was a wonderful day as well. And then I was posted as assistant priest to St Mary's Cathedral, which was providential really, because I'd been attending the cathedral over many, many years before becoming a priest. So to be a priest at St Mary's Cathedral was wonderful, and it was a great experience because we did a bit of everything. I got used to preaching to a lot of people, big congregation of people. Also, we learned about hospital ministry, and I got involved in organising a lot of events. So when I arrived in Chittering, Gingin Chittering, it really was a parish of sheds. There wasn't much infrastructure at all. In fact, the only church the parish owned was in Gingin, a little timber and iron church, and it had been condemned because it was infested with bees. So the challenge was to actually renovate the church. All the pews had already been sold off, and the congregation had become scattered. So it was a matter of renovating that church, getting rid of the bees. We had to line the inside of the church completely afresh, and we built a grotto in the grounds also of the little church, and the congregation grew and grew after that. So the purpose of the church is to gather the people together, and we needed that infrastructure to gather the people together. After Gingin, we'd renovated that church. There was a great need for a church in Bendune, because we had Mass in a little fibro house in Bendune. We had 3 acres of land there, and the original church blew down in a cyclone in 1943. So there was no church there. So we set about fundraising to build a little church in Bendune on the block, the parish block. So that church in Bendune was opened in July 2004 by Archbishop Hickey, and since then the congregation has grown around that church. And after that we started looking towards having a mother church in the parish, and the main population base, which is Lower Chittering, Marrable Downs estate. Most of the Chittering population lives down in this part of the world. So we managed to acquire land by approaching a landowner, and he donated the land for a church and a school. In the meantime, we collected a lot of rock. We collected, myself, parishioners, others, collected about 1,500 tonne of rock, local moss rock, in order to build this church at Lower Chittering. A very big learning curve. When I was back in seminary, I would have never imagined that I would have been involved in building churches, but I discovered we can't really build a community unless we've got some infrastructure. So the church was something which was very necessary in order to gather the people together. There are a lot of things happening around the parish these days. We've got Eucharistic adoration. It's not quite 24/7, but the church is accessible 24/7. We've got a key code on the door, and people come in all hours of the day and night and do their holy hours. Well, I think over the 25 years, which it will be in October since I was ordained, probably the highlight is seeing people on pews really growing the parish from a small country parish to now a lively, very active parish. That's very encouraging for me as a priest, to see the number of people getting involved in the church, the number of baptisms, the number of conversions, a number of adult converts are coming into the church as well. So seeing people grow closer to God, that's the most rewarding thing for me as a priest, seeing people come closer to God. That's what it's all about. That's why I became a priest, to actually spread the good news and bring people closer to God. So to serve God and serve souls. So that's the most rewarding thing when I see people coming closer to God, the parish growing, and people really deepening their faith life, like of Eucharistic adoration, the Rosary. Well, I think as a priest, the highlight of every day is the offering of the Holy Mass. That is a highlight of every day, the high point of each day, offering the Mass. And seeing the people coming to daily Mass is so encouraging. The numbers of daily Mass goers has been growing steadily, and people are really hungering for the Eucharist. So that's been very rewarding for me. My strength as a priest comes from my relationship with Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament. So my prayer each day, my rosaries as well, to our Heavenly Mother, this really gives me the strength to carry on. And more recently, I've been involved in reading the volumes on the Divine Will, a spiritual reading. So I still have recourse to the Bible regularly. In the liturgy, of course, we have a lot of Bible readings, but for my personal prayer, I do Lectio Divina every day, which is spiritual reading of the Bible. I take the Gospel passage for the coming Sunday as part of my preparation. I do this on Monday morning, and I meditate on the Gospel for the coming Sunday each day during the week. I take a little passage, like in this coming Sunday, Jesus is saying, I'm the door. I'm the door of the sheepfold. So that would be my meditation for the week in my Lectio Divina. So I'm still using the Bible regularly in my personal prayer life. For any young people discerning about becoming a priest, I would say just pray about it and go and experience it in a house of discernment. There are houses of discernment for priests, or maybe just see if you can stay in a parish and help a parish priest and get to understand the life of a parish priest. Be open to the calling. The most important thing is to be open, because you can only be really happy if you're doing what God wants you to do. God has a calling for every one of us. So most people are called to marriage, some to single life, others to priesthood, religious life. But the most important thing is to find out what God is indeed calling you to. I look forward to achieving the ultimate end, which of course is heaven, but in the meantime, I just look forward to bringing people closer to God. So to serving souls and seeing souls develop the spiritual life. That's what I'm here for, to serve, to do weddings, baptisms, to offer the Holy Mass, and serve in many other different capacities. I serve the school, I do school masses for the school students. But the whole idea, and the most rewarding thing for me anyway, is to work for souls and to serve God. So the word vocation comes from the Latin to call. So it's a calling. Looking back, I think God set me apart really, because I had ill health when I was small. I had asthma, so I wasn't cut out to be a farmer. So I ended up leaving. I worked in offices, ended up in the city, did studies, and came in contact with the cathedral, had an experience when I was 25, which drew me closer to God. So I can see the hand of God working in my life. And God does things in our lives, I think, in order to it's a matter of dying to our own will. Like when someone suggested to me being a priest when I was 25, around that age, I wasn't ready, but I probably, I had worldly pursuits I wanted to achieve, but once I got to the seminary, I knew this was right for me. I probably could have got in earlier, but then again, I think, well, maybe I wasn't ready at that point. God calls people when they're ready. So I would say to anyone, pursue the calling. If you feel the calling in your heart, it always comes from within, and then sometimes through other people. Other people did encourage me as well. Pursue it. Pursue the calling.
Are you searching for answers? Discover your true identity. Stay tuned to Shalom World.